Hello everyone, I'm Isaac and welcome back to my channel. Now today we're going to be looking at a video from a channel called Press for Truth, hosted by Dan Dix. But as you will quickly see, this channel is a press for anything but the truth. And although Mr. Dix thinks of himself as a reporter, it's quite clear he doesn't have the attributes of one. In any case, the title of today's video is entitled Transgender Summer Camp for Kids with 2 exclamation points. And the 2 exclamation points are not there to emphasize excitement. But without further ado, let's begin.
This is Dan Dix here reporting for Press for Truth. I can't be PC about this anymore. The LGBTQ++ add your letter community has been royally pissing me off.
We are less than 15 seconds into the video and you already just had to show off your dog whistles. You see, he is implying that the LGBT+ community is somehow invalid due to the long acronym, which isn't the case at all.
Because they're taking this whole fight to be whatever you want to be way too far. You've won, guys. You're here, you're queer, and everyone got used to it. Nobody cares anymore. You can pretty much do whatever you want. You can even get married at this point. You can celebrate your pride by prancing around in the streets half naked, so you've won, guys, and good for you.
We didn't win everything, and not everyone got used to it. In at least 31 states, it's still legal to fire someone for being LGBT+, and the Trump administration has also recently rolled back protections for trans bathroom rights, and banned trans people from service. Furthermore, there was recently a Make America Straight Again conference, which hosted speakers who have said such things as this.
At Revival Baptist Church, we hate homos, amen. We hate their lifestyle, we hate what they do. LGBT dogs. We hate homosexuals around here because God hates them, amen. We're going to believe that all the way till Jesus comes back, and capital punishment for everybody that's a homo, amen.
There's innocent people who live in this world that these people are going to corrupt if we continue to allow them to live. Therefore, they need to be put to death.
If I had a button right here on the pulpit, I could just push this button and every would fall over dead. I'll push it until it breaks.
I will push it until I break my finger.
You know, I think Orlando, Florida is a little safer tonight. Now that 50, you know, the tragedy is that more of them didn't die. I mean, the tragedy is I'm kind of upset that he didn't finish the job.
We want these people to die, that God will put them in depression so deep that they will go ahead and kill themselves since our government's not doing it.
And we have yet to address the mental health of LGBT+ people who come from non-accepting households, which is all too common. And that's just in the US. In many countries, it is illegal to even exist as an LGBT+ person. So for you to say, everything is fine because gay marriage is utter bullshit.
But when you bring children into the picture, I have a serious problem with what you're doing. And your irresponsible, dangerous enabling ways will be exposed for the wickedness that it is.
We involve children because LGBT+ people exist, and believe it or not, some children are in fact LGBT+. And when we do involve children, we are careful to ensure that everything we teach them is age appropriate. But what horrible thing is Mr. Dix exposing?
Now I'm going to warn you, the following clip is difficult to watch, but try to get through it. It's important to understand what we're dealing with here and just how bad things have gotten.
At Rainbow Day Camp, kids sing silly songs, play ball, make art, and do wacky relay races. But what makes this summer program unique is the campers it serves, transgender children, some as young as 4 years old. It's a place where they can use the pronoun of their choice and meet other transgender kids and adults, including many of the camp counselors.
They're following their creative interests and they don't have this added stress or weight of being othered. They get to be their most authentic selves and build community with other people who understand the same life experience.
People aren't like, oh, they're more like, okay, that's cool, and then we just move on.
Transgender fluid person.
Sandra Collins, a former college professor, started the program 2 years ago after she struggled to find a camp where her transgender daughter Scarlett would feel comfortable.
You know, I used to say that the camp began out of sadness because of this experience, but a friend encouraged me to reframe it, that the camp began out of love, out of trying to create a safe space for my daughter and then other kids who were like her.
Enrollment has since tripled to 60 campers from California and beyond.
I like to be who I am, and it's not fun to be who I am not.
Experts say the camp's growth mirrors the sharp increase in transgender children across the country.
We are definitely seeing more kids, many more kids socially transitioning at very young ages. And the reason we're seeing them more is because we're looking for them and letting them be found.
For critics who question whether preschool-age kids should be allowed to transition so early, developmental psychologist Diane Aronsaf says children can identify their gender at a very young age.
We expect a 2-year-old to know, I am boy, I am girl. So why can't that also apply to transgender children?
Banana flag.
Molly Maxwell says that's what happened when her child was a toddler.
Once she learned to talk and have a voice, she was very insistent that she was not a boy, she was a girl, and to call her a girl.
James KAPLAN's mom doesn't regret allowing her child to transition.
I had to mourn the loss of my daughter and at the same time welcome my son and get to know him. And as soon as he transitioned, he was happier, he was confident.
And building confidence and community is what Rainbow Day Camp is all about.
That's right, Mr. Dix has a problem with trans children existing and having a place where they can be themselves. And yet, just a minute earlier, he said we've all gotten used to it.
This is child abuse. And these people have demonstrated that they're not even fit to be pet owners, yet alone parents who are looking after children.
Affirming your child's gender identity is not child abuse. According to several studies on the matter, children who are affirmed in their transitions have suicide, depression, and anxiety rates that are the same as cisgender children, and not affirming a child's gender identity has been shown to greatly increase suicide, depression, and anxiety rates. Not to mention the fact that the American Academy of Pediatrics supports transgender children in their transition, and that, quote, shaming children based on their gender identity or expression is harmful to their social or emotional health and may have lifelong consequences, unquote. Quite frankly, if anyone is unfit to be a parent here, it is quite clearly you.
The article that goes along with this clip is just as troubling as what you just witnessed. Check this out. Transgender camp teaches kids they're normal, not alone. At check-in each day, campers make a name tag with their pronoun of choice. Some opt for she or he, or a combination of she and he, or they, or no pronoun at all. Some change their names or pronouns daily to see what feels right. So a child as young as 4 years old can decide to be gender fluid, meaning he or she can be whatever it wants to be at any given time. If you as an adult cater to this and encourage this kind of behavior, well, I can only hope and pray that God has mercy on your soul.
As I have stated before, affirming a child in their transition is what has been scientifically proven to be the best course of action for the child. You are literally saying, God have mercy on your soul for making the best decision you could to support your child. And as for the changing pronouns, that isn't necessarily a child changing their gender, but exploring themselves in order to know who they are in a place where they are free to do so without backlash. And even if they were gender fluid, that is in no way a bad thing, and you haven't given any reason whatsoever why this would be a bad thing. And in fact, the experts and best available data contradict your assertion. You see that everyone got used to LGBT plus people being here, but this entire video is just you contradicting your original unfounded assertion.
On a sunny July morning at camp, the theme was Crazy Hair Day, and a 6-year-old Gracie Maxwell was dancing in the sunshine as a Miley Cyrus song blasted from outdoor speakers. Because naturally, that's what you want your 4 to 12-year-old child listening to at transgender camp.
I see you conveniently forgot to mention that Miley Cyrus also played Hannah Montana at one point and created songs that were very much appropriate for children that age. But I suppose at this point that is to be expected from this level of ignorance and baseless assertion so far.
Once she could talk, I don't remember a time when she didn't say, "I'm a girl," said her mother, Molly Maxwell, who still trips over pronouns but tries to stick to she. Then it grew in intensity. "I'm a sister, I'm a daughter, I'm a princess," Maxwell said. We would argue with her. She was confused. We were confused. These people are incredibly confused, all right. And normally I wouldn't care. People can do whatever they want, so long as they're not hurting anyone. But you see, this is where they've crossed a line, because these children are being psychologically abused. And we as a society cannot continue to just look the other way in the name of remaining politically correct.
Affirming a child's gender identity is in no way abusing them. All of the medical professionals and best scientific data on the matter could not run more contrary to your baseless assertions. And no, society is very much not looking the other way. In fact, it is because people are in fact looking for children who are trans and saying that it is okay to be themselves. Something that was explained by Diane Ernshaft in the clip you just showed not 2 minutes earlier. You call yourself a reporter, but yet you couldn't be bothered to do the most basic level of research on the matter, which is the first thing you should do as a reporter before publishing a story like this.
Gender specialists say the camp's growth reflects what they are seeing in gender clinics nationwide. Increasing number of children coming out as transgender at young ages. They credit the rise to greater openness and awareness of LGBT issues and parenting tuning in earlier when a child shows signs of gender dysphoria or distress about their gender. You see, the reason why this is a growing phenomenon is because these so-called mental health experts have refrained from calling transgender thoughts or transgender feelings a mental illness, which is what it is, and they're now referring to it as gender dysphoria. And they're encouraging these young, impressionable minds to go ahead with their transitioning.
Firstly, the medical experts you are referring to have refrained from calling it a mental disorder because it isn't one. And before you make this assertion again, the experts have far more expertise than you on the subject, because again, the scientific data overwhelmingly supports their conclusion. Yet you, who couldn't be bothered to cite a single source in the matter, or even give any reason whatsoever, other than give completely baseless assertions that this is somehow child abuse, are going to say that they are wrong. Well, forgive me for taking the side of the people who understand the meaning of the word research. Second, the way you phrased what you said about children being encouraged to transition makes it sound like they're pressuring them to transition, which could not be further from the truth, as up to 90% of children referred to gender clinics end up desisting. Now, the high desistance rate comes from the fact that gender nonconforming behavior was criterion enough to include them in said studies. However, being transgender has nothing to do with behavior and everything to do with identity, which is why the children who only display gender nonconforming behavior end their treatment long before they decide to socially transition.
A lot of these kids have been bullied and had trauma at school. This is a world where none of that exists, and they're in the majority, Collins said. That's a new experience for kids who are used to hiding and feeling small. Well, you know what? The world is a tough and scary place, and the more cozy little safe spaces that you nerf these kids into, the more ill-equipped and unprepared these kids are going to be when dealing with this thing we all call the real world.
These children are not being babied and left unprepared for the real world. They are simply creating a space in which they are not being verbally or physically abused. And that kind of bullying we're talking about here is not just getting called mean names. We're talking about situations that are genuinely terrifying. Now, I've never done this before in any of my videos before, but I'm going to put a trigger warning, as I will be showing photos of the injuries on screen, so if you don't feel you're in a place to see that, you can click on the timestamp in the description below. But in any case, on March 30th, a teenage trans person in the UK was approached by a group of teenagers, who verbally abused them, which eventually escalated to one of the teens pulling a knife and slicing the cheek of the victim. The victim was eventually able to escape and called for help, which is when the police were called and the victim was taken to the hospital. And on the 19th of March, a trans girl by the name of Corinne Kratz was assaulted by another female student who pulled out chunks of her hair and began beating her head so severely that had not a teacher intervened, Corinne would have likely died. Another important detail and note involving this incident is that this is the third time Corinne was physically assaulted for her transgender status. Both incidents that happened this year and within the UK, a place that is generally more progressive than the majority of the United States. And yet this bullshit is still happening. Children should not have to live their lives worried that strangers or their peers are going to attack them or possibly kill them. Your complete disregard for their safety and well-being of these children quite clearly shows that you're either just that ignorant when it comes to just how bad things can get for trans people, or that you just don't care.
The favored protocol today is known as the gender affirmative approach, which focuses on identifying and helping transgender children to socially transition, to live as the gender they identify with rather than the one they were born with, until they're old enough to decide on medical options like puberty blockers. What? Alright, stop this ride. I want to get off. They just said you should help the child socially transition until they're old enough to make the medical decision on whether or not to take puberty blockers. So pre-puberty, these people think that these children are old enough to decide whether or not they should go through puberty. How is this not child abuse?
It isn't child abuse because, as I've established before, affirming a child in their transition is the best possible decision one could make for that child. Furthermore, the parent of the children are not the only ones involved in the decision. The only way for someone to be prescribed puberty blockers is by a medical professional, and as I've established before, medical professionals are very good at weeding out children who are transgender and thus need to transition from those who are not. And even if they get to the stage of being prescribed puberty blockers, according to the medical professionals, puberty blockers are fully reversible should the child at any point change their mind, with the only consequence being that they go through a late puberty. And furthermore, according to a meta-study from Cornell University, transitioning has been shown to be the best possible decision for those that are transgender.
At Rainbow Day Camp, a therapist is on hand to talk if kids want. Therapy sessions are extended to parents at a support group after morning drop-off. Many counselors are transgender, which offers campers upbeat role models. This is not a role model. This is a mentally unstable individual.
People who are transgender are not inherently mentally unstable. That is a completely unfair and unfounded assertion.
And all these parents are doing is creating a safe space echo chamber so they can cater to their child's delusion, all because they're too PC to live in reality.
The absence of transphobic abuse does not make a space an echo chamber, and being transgender is not a delusion, it is a natural variation of the human experience. And as I've stated before, all of the scientific data and medical professionals contradict your conclusion. Furthermore, these spaces are not preventing children from being prepared for the real world. Rather, it is assisting them, as these programs show children that they have a community that can help them, as well as affirms the child's identity, as children who are affirmed in their transition have far lower suicide, depression, and anxiety rates.
The article goes on to say that even a 3-year-old child should be able to decide what gender they are.
The article says that children as young as 3 can socially transition because the best scientific data shows that children that age are able to understand enough about themselves to know what gender they are. As according to healthychildren.org, a website sponsored by the American Academy of Pediatrics, children are normally able to label themselves either a boy or a girl before they turn 3. Something mentioned in the clip you just showed not 5 minutes earlier. Forget doing research to even look through what you edit.
I mean, I don't even know what to say anymore. This has gotten so far out of hand, and it needs to stop.
Well, perhaps you would know what to say had you done some actual research.
Click the like button.
Fuck you. In any case, that's the end of the video, and in all honesty, this was probably one of the worst videos I've ever reviewed on this channel, as this guy not only advocates for trans children not to transition and calls it child abuse, but just shrugs off actual abuse as though it's no big deal, and does so with obviously no prior research or planning, which is especially scary due to the size of his following, most of which probably believe him. If this guy wants to be pressed for truth and not pressed for right-wing reactionaries, he needs to do some actual research before shooting these videos, instead of just watching a clip and then reading an article and just screaming child abuse without any reasons or basis. In any case, that's the end of this video. If you enjoyed, please be sure to give it a like, subscribe for more content, and I'll see you guys next time. Special thanks to everyone for getting me past 100 subscribers, and be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram at McGay1999.